deviant outcast. Okay, so let me reset sound. Do we have sound? Okay, sounds great. Thank you, Tim. Good. Thank you all. Rex, Rex Metzler. Okay, let me start over. This is today we're going to talk about Danny Masterson and the Church of Scientology entering uncharted legal territory. This is so fascinating. I've been following Aaron Smith Levin, and last week I broke the story on my blog about Danny Masterson being declared a suppressive person. Now, Aaron reacted to this, as did others, because I stand by my story. My sources are unimpeachable. As a journalist, I wouldn't have done it. But I did a live with Mike Rinder and Mark and Claire Headley, in which it was conceded that the Church of Scientology could be lying to the people they told that Danny had been declared. So it also could be that Captain David Miscavige has his IS event coming up and they want to handle Danny. But so this has been murky. Aaron, who's one of the ultimate players here, hasn't been able to find anything. I found several sources, and I'm not going to educate OSA on anything beyond saying I know that some people were told that Danny Masterson was declared a suppressive person. So on this live, I want to go into a couple of things that makes such a big problem. So first of all, it may have happened that several people were told it just as a PR handling to get rid of him. But once it became a big news story, and it did go viral, maybe they shut down this thing inside the church faster than the Chase Wave credit card fraud. Who knows? I want to go briefly into a history. I'm going to add this. Now, within the Church of Scientology, we're presented with this neat organization called the Sea Organization. And the Sea Org is supposed to be senior ecclesiastical officials making decisions based on LRH policy. Now, that's the way it's supposed to work. So you're supposed to have Sea Org members and deciding whether someone's, a suppressive or not. However, as we know, in terms of LRH policy, it all goes to hell because David Miscavige can overrule any LRH policy. So there's a series of dilemmas here faced by David Miscavige. And one of the early examples of David Miscavige, as they call it, squirreling the tech, was around 1997 with the Golden Age of Tech Phase 1, where he changed the definition of the floating needle. And to non-Scientologist watchers, when you get a floating needle, it's a rhythmic sweep of the needle, Ron Hubbard says on the e-meter. And David Miscavige changed that definition. And a lot of Scientologists got really angry and left the church because he wanted these mechanical 3 sweeps of the needle. That's getting a little bit down in the weeds. But David Miscavige, there was a former SEERG member named John Peeler. He was chief DPTSer at the Gold Base. So he would DPTS people. So PTS is anyway, if you were PTS, potential trouble source, he would potential trouble source you. He's a member of the Perimeter Council. And John said to me once, Scientology is whatever David Miscavige says it is on any given day. So therefore, there doesn't have to be any consistency. And does the church lie to its members? Oh, hell yes. The church lies to its members. It can tell one member one thing and another member another thing. And they can tell both of the members, don't talk to anyone about this. So it could tell 10 members 10 different things in order them not to never talk about it. And Scientologists are not allowed to compare notes. In fact, you'd get written up. You would get written up, and you get in trouble if you talked about things. Mitch Britzker, hello, Jeffrey. I don't think any Scientologist was ever convicted of a crime and sent to prison has ever been officially declared. That is to say, published, declare, publicly displayed. Well, Mitch, my response to you is we'll do some research into that. For example, you make a good point, and let me share something. And this is where, as a community, we can do some really fun work. I'm going to share a screen. So give me a minute here. And Mitch brings up the topic. For example, here we see William Rex Fowler. He was a Scientologist OT7. I think is actually an 8, but William Rex Fowler was convicted of first-degree murder in the state of Colorado. And what Fowler did is he engaged in the premeditated murder of his business partner. And this was an interesting story because Fowler, seen here in the orange jumpsuit, basically he embezzled money from his company. He owed his partner money, and his partner came in to collect money, and William Rex Fowler shot and killed his business partner at point-blank range with a 9mm. Fowler then turned the gun onto himself to kill himself. However, he got nervous. The trigger jiggled, the barrel moved, and the bullet traversed his sinuses and exited his forehead. While there was an active crime scene investigation, they were trying to figure out if Fowler was the shooter or the victim. Fowler's wife showed up and demanded from the police that she needed to take Fowler's briefcase, which contained OT materials. So the question was, William Rex Fowler, convicted first-degree murderer, ever declared a suppressive person? I've heard from people that he was. Was Reed Slacken, who engaged in a $600 million plus Ponzi scheme in the 90s, was he declared? So that's a good question. Mitch's argument is that once you're convicted of a serious crime, they don't bother declaring you. But then that would allow your family to come and visit you at prison. So, yeah, Mitch, we'll have to go do a live together on this. So let's get back to Danny Masterson. I'm going to introduce, before we talk about him being declared, I want to share something with you. I'm going to share a screen because this is new news. So let me stop that screen and go to another screen. So I'm going to, something I just posted on my blog. And, okay, I'm going to share this screen. Now, I published just an hour ago, Danny Masterson and Bijou Philips, I learned, were hit with a $128,000 IRS tax lien for unpaid taxes. This is on my blog right now. It's the top post. Excuse me. This was reported by Radar. So Danny and Bijou on February 3rd, 2023, were hit with an IRS tax lien for $128,983. So call it $129,000. Now, this is interesting because it suggests there's a couple of ways we can read it. These are hypotheticals. First of all, the tax lien has seniority over any court judgments and all other debts. The U.S. government gets their cut first. And you can read the language of what this particular document says. So they made a demand for it. They can foreclose, take Danny and Bijou's real estate. They can take any kind of assets they have to satisfy that debt. So the tax lien suggests that Danny was conserving cash to pay his massive legal bills in those taxable years, because this covers 2019, 2020, and 2021, when Danny was burning a lot of cash with lawyers. So he wasn't paying his taxes. And it could also suggest that his royalties from that 70s show on the ranch were significantly reduced or eliminated. And Aaron talked about that the 70s show actors each lost a reported $20 million when the show was not picked up for syndication. And it alone cost Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis $40 million. So here's the question. Is there a bankruptcy coming? I don't know. But certainly when you have $130,000 or $129,000 tax lien, you may not have enough money to pay for your appeal on your criminal defense, and Scientology is implicated in it. Now, one of the problems Scientology has is it cannot pay Danny Masterson's legal bills. That would be Enurement. Enurement is when tax-exempt dollars go to the personal benefit of an individual. So you can't pay Danny Masterson's legal defense. Now, lawyers, if you're tax experts on tax-exempt law, contact me. And by the way, I have one of the same problems Aaron Smith-Levin does, and that sometimes people think my phone is hacked or my email could be, and it's not safe to contact me. It is, but I do have an encrypted email. So if you want to reach out to me, I do have a Proton account, and you can contact me that way. And I'll put my Proton account in the show notes after the show. So you have a confidential encrypted way. I use Signal. I use WhatsApp. So you can contact me through encrypted means. And I understand the fear people have who are still in the church that they don't want to get involved. So going back to my slide. Okay, so first of all, are Danny and Bijou headed for bankruptcy? I can't find that they've satisfied the tax lien. And to go back to that, let's go back and take a look at that. This article, this shows the Radar Online posted the tax lien. There's a notice of federal tax lien. So they pulled the paperwork on it. And I don't know that they've satisfied it. So if they don't have the money to satisfy it in their middle of the divorce, and California is a community state, so Bijou would take 50% of the assets. So that's the first wrinkle I wanted to introduce into the Danny Masterson SP problem. Now let's go back. I'm going to stop sharing that page and go back to here. Okay, so what the Church of Scientology wants you to think is that there's all these ecclesiastical officials who make rational decisions based on L. Ron Hubbard policy. As I've said, that all goes out the window. With the Danny Masterson case, Scientology is in legally uncharted territory. And that's the same point I wanted to make in terms of arbitration, with Valerie Henry or Luis Garcia. They're in legally uncharted territory. Scientology has never been in a situation where they have a clearly suppressive person who's committed serious crimes and is in prison, and the church is deeply implicated in the cover-up and perhaps even felony obstruction. So this is someone where Danny is, by L. Ron Hubbard definition, a suppressive person. He's a type B. He's a criminal. He's been convicted of antisocial acts, to say the least, violent crimes. So what does Scientology do? Because this has never happened. Originally, L. Ron Hubbard created Project Celebrity to recruit celebrities because they were opinion leaders who could influence people to bring them into Scientology. Well, if L. Ron Hubbard were still around, we could ask, hey, Ron, how is Project Celebrity working out for you? Oh, Danny Masterson. It's staggering to think 70 years of donations and work, it all is blown to hell by Danny Masterson. What an unlikely thing to have happen. So these ecclesiastical officials, and this is an older picture, by the way, and there's Foster Tompkins, so Sterling's dad, and we see Kathy Rinder. But what really happens, instead of having these neatly organized and trained, dutiful Sea Org terminals, these members making decisions per policy, what we really have is people like Julian Swartz, who's the enforcer for David Miscavige. Captain Miscavige is seen here in Barbados a few years ago, where a corrupt retired Colombian police general, Mina Bravo, gave him a medal. And that caused quite the stir in Colombia. The legislature was outraged by this, giving David Miscavige a medal. So that's the reality, is that David Miscavige can change L. Ron Hubbard policy at will. He can do whatever the hell he wants, and then he'll order his minions like Julian Swartz to carry out his orders. So this first quote I want to share with you, this is from Marty Rothman's blog back in the day when he was on our side, before he crossed back over to the dark side. So Marty made a note around 2013, I believe, on his blog. And Marty said that this was in the case of Debbie Cook. Some people had a provisional SP declare held over their head, whereby, quote, you were told that if you remain compliant and silent on the outside, the SP declare would not come. But if you did otherwise, you would be SP declared, thus either lose your immortal future and or lose the right to communicate with friends, associates, business contacts, and family. So that's an interesting thing there. We knew back in that period, what was called the independent Scientologists, or they were using provisional SP declares. So you were declared, but not. It was almost like an unsigned resignation. It said that David Miscavige keeps unsigned resignations, all his senior officials in his desk. Given the fact that he stripped the executive strata, that might not even be a thing anymore. But it's like an unsigned resignation. You basically have an SP declare. If you're a Scientologist, that's the ecclesiastical analogy of a gun to your head. We're not going to declare you, but it's all written out. All we have to do is sign it. And by the way, for old-time Scientologists, they remind us that they used to post publicly SP declares on the board so everyone could read them inside the org, and you would be given a copy of your SP declare. However, they have not given copies of SP declares to those who have been declared for probably 15 years because they were getting posted on the internet, and Scientology didn't want people to see them. So I had a journalist contact me and ask me if I could get a copy of the Goldenrod, the SP declare of Danny Masterson. I can't get it. My sources didn't see it. They were verbally told that Masterson was declared. So that's another wrinkle. Now, going back to this slide. So Marty did mention that people were provisionally declared. And if they didn't toe the line, the declare would become effective. Now, Mike Ruppin, in the second paragraph, Mike Ruppin says, quote, and he's a former SEERG member, quote, I joined the SEERG in 1973 and lasted until 1998. I have been RPF'd 4 times, ComEv'd at least 10 times, and even given a provisional declare in 1997 by the then Inspector General Pack and an RTCEO, Religious Technology Center Ethics Office, I guess, or Ethics Officer. People ask me for the reference for such, and my answer is there isn't one. One of David Miscavige's many inventions. In my 25 years in the SEERG, I did have a lot of good times and was able to train to Class 9 Net 4Ts level 1990. So what we have is the testimony of several people, including Mike Ruppin, a good guy, talking about being provisionally declared an SP. So as an intermediate possibility, Danny could be an intermediate SP. But what I wanted to bring up is a hypothetical. One of the biggest complaints about SP declares is the disconnection. That's what has brought Scientology. It's cost a lot of members because people have left. When they were told they couldn't talk to their wife, son, daughter, parents, they left. Leah Remini's family left as a group to avoid the whole problem of disconnection. So Aaron Smith-Levin said that how could an SP work with church attorneys? And Danny Masterson's upcoming appeal on his criminal charges, which is coming, we know that. How could he work with church lawyers? Well, he could. And or how could he work with church terminals? You know, for example, Julian Swartz, if he's called to testify in the civil trial, how could Danny work with him as an SP? The answer is he could, because I made a remark to Mike Rinder that David Miscavige and the Church of Scientology, they often have to do things that are expedient, that violate LRH policy. The Chase Wave credit card fraud was a clear violation of church policy. and yet it was allowed to go on. It was a criminal activity. It was out exchange. Technically, it violated classic L. Ron Hubbard policy, but they went ahead and did it. And LRH said that an exchange condition where you take something and give nothing in return is called criminal ripoff. So the Chase Wave credit card fraud was a criminal ripoff. It technically violates LRH, but operationally, they don't care. So we get into an area where, yes, in some parts of Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard policy is strictly adhered to, perhaps in the delivery of the tech, but not always, because as I mentioned, David Miscavige changed the definition of the floating needle. He also basically edited Dianetics because he said the original copy of Dianetics was, here, I'll give a copy. David Miscavige said that the original copy, this is a 1968 copy, was written by SP transcriptions from the wrong side of the gene pool and was a pile of garbage. And that is why you had to buy the new one, because there were so many transcription errors. Now, was David Miscavige allowed to alter the sacred writ of L. Ron Hubbard? This gets interesting because the IRS was told by the Church of Scientology that L. Ron Hubbard's works comprised the scriptures of the Scientology religion. And yet, after tax exemption, David Miscavige said, oh, this was a pile of garbage, even though we told you, the IRS, that this was the unalterable holy writ of L. Ron Hubbard. And this was Scientology scriptures. After tax exemption in the 5-year probationary period, after 1998, Miscavige said, oh, pile of crap. In fact, David Miscavige said, and we have it on video, if you couldn't understand Dianetics, you weren't alone. And the entire audience of Scientologists cheered because this was unreadable. So Scientology doesn't make sense, and it doesn't have to make sense. It's often illogical, contradictory, and we know it lies all the time. So stay with me here. So what I thought, this is speculation on my part, but we're allowed to engage in deadly speculation. So what I'm thinking about, maybe David Miscavige has put out a new category called suppressive person with legal exemptions. That'd be an SPLE. Can talk to limited family members in church terminals and lawyers on legal and financial matters. So maybe there's a new category, a new carve out for the Danny Masterson exemption, because what the hell are they going to do? Now, this thing that I'm proposing, the suppressive person with legal exemptions, would be akin to the provisional SP. So you're allowed to talk to limited family members in church terminals and lawyers on legal and financial matters. It would require OSA and RTC terminals. That means people. Scientology calls people terminals. So right now, I'm your terminal at the Scientology Money Project. And Tim Greenglass says, no sense makes sense, Charles Manson, after 150 hours of Dianetics study. Very good. Yeah. So I'm saying maybe there's a new secret RTC eyes only suppressive person with legal exemptions. So the other point I wanted to make is the church cannot pay an SP's legal expenses, as this would be Enurement. So perhaps we would watch for a Danny Masterson legal defense fund to be set up by perhaps Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis, the dear friends of Danny Masterson, who wrote to the judge saying, other than the 2 serious felony violent crimes of which he's committed, he's a great guy. And then they walked that back. Boy, yeah. Maybe Ashton and Mila set up a third-party legal defense fund for Masterson if he does go bankrupt, and they would do it in a tax haven that offered complete anonymity, such as the state of Wyoming or Mauritius. So that could be something that could happen. So was William Rex Fowler declared a suppressive person after he was committed, or after he was convicted of first-degree premeditated murder? We need to find that out. Was Reed Slacken declared a suppressive person after he was convicted on his Ponzi scheming and sent to prison. I think he was, but I'm going to research. I can't be 100% certain. So was Danny Masterson declared a suppressive person? According to my sources, they were told that. But within the church, is there a provisional document or is there a special new category of SP declare? Because this is legally uncharted. You have a violation of LRH policy if you don't declare him. Technically, the other problem is if Danny is a criminal, a type B, I believe, he's ineligible for auditing. He's an illegal pre-clear. He cannot be audited. So how do you take someone who's not receiving the benefits of Scientology pastoral counseling, which is what they call auditing? So he would have present time problems. His BT case would be in restimulation. He'd be messed up without the benefit of Scientology counseling. That is, he would be out of present time. He would have evil purposes, perhaps. He would have unhandled all kinds of stuff. So you expect this guy who's not receiving the benefits of Scientology auditing to go into legal trial. So you're not going to give him Scientology counseling to help him. And yet he's going to go into a legal trial where you, the Church of Scientology, and David Miscavige are implicated and involved in the case. So how can it be that you take an unaudited illegal pre-clear who's been convicted of serious felonies, not declare him and still work with him, but not handle him spiritually? That is just hard to get your mind around because none of it fits together. You think when you declare someone a suppressive person that they don't get any more auditing forever. They're only terminal as the international justice chief. However, if Masterson and his legal team, if he can afford it, they have to deal with church terminals. So I don't know, Aaron. That's an interesting question. This is a series of problems and this is something that L. Ron Hubbard never wrote policy about. There's no L. Ron Hubbard policy about here's what happens when when a Scientologist is convicted of very serious felony crimes, and we're not going to declare him because we still have to work with him because the church is involved in it. L. Ron Hubbard never wrote about that. In fact, all L. Ron Hubbard said about Scientology is we are the most ethical group on the planet, except they're not the most ethical group on the planet. So there's no L. Ron Hubbard policy. And this gets into questions about what you do when L. Ron Hubbard was writing in pre-internet days and when he wasn't having to deal with the issue of a convicted criminal in his midst being in good standing. And I think Aaron's stroke of genius was to keep saying that Danny Masterson is a Scientologist in good standing. And it very possibly could be that the church was verbally telling people that he'd been declared to counter Aaron's efforts that he was in good standing when he shouldn't be in good standing. He should be declared. So there's a divorce. There's a $129,000 IRS tax lien against Danny and Bijou. So this is a really tangled mess. It's sort of one of those problems that's not easy to get out of because it has a lot of complications. So Danny would want to be visited by his family in prison, but they're not supposed to if he's a suppressive. But is there a new category of suppressive person created by David Miscavige where Danny gets exceptions? So is it that bad where if you're convicted of serious crimes, you can be exempted from LRH policies to work with the Church of Scientology? Oh, hi, Kazri. It was a pleasure to meet you. Likewise, at the protest at Celebrity Center, that was really something. So those are some of my thoughts, and this is really good. This is why SBTV is so good. We can thrash these things out. I want to share another screen with you. Let me go back to this one. So in terms of a new wrinkle in the case, Danny Masterson and Bijou Philips appear to have some financial difficulties. They're going through divorce because California is a no-fault state. It's a community property state. Bijou will take 50%, but she's also on the hook for that IRS tax lien along with her now ex-husband. It takes 6 months in the state of California for a divorce to be finalized. So let's say the divorce, I think it was October. So October, November, December, January, February, March. So sometime by March 2024, their divorce will be final. Now, Bijou's still on the hook for that. They could seize assets. We don't know what'll happen, but that's a new wrinkle in the case. So much to talk about. So much going on. So I'm enjoying listening to Aaron's research. Shout out to you, Aaron. You're doing great work. And maybe we can do a live on it. And certainly Mitch raises good questions too. Once you're convicted, do they not even bother declaring you? Well, I'm going to do some research. And I do, like I said, I do believe Reed Slacken was declared. I think William Rex Fowler was. Hit me up. I'm going to put my contact information in the show notes. And I'll put my encrypted mail so you feel safe, because we do need to start, if you're not using encrypted email like Proton, if you're not using WhatsApp and Signal, I recommend you just switch to encrypted apps for your own safety and protection, because OSA is not above hacking. And right now is a period where I'll tell you OSA is about as overcharged as you can get. That's a Scientology term, meaning really overcharged. They are pissed off, which I don't care about. They can get as angry as they can get as pissed off as they want. I don't give a shit, OSA. You can get as mad as you want. I do not have any fucks to give about what you think about anything. I think all of you should be in prison. Really. So I don't give a shit. But I'm going to watch my back. I'm going to use encrypted communications. So that's just good discipline when you're fighting this multi-billion-dollar insane violent cult. Use encrypted apps. That's my recommendation. So that's what I had. That's what I'm going to go live with. Is a lot of questions have been raised since the story broke that Danny Masterson has been expelled from the church. So who knows? Maybe there's an intermediate expulsion. Maybe it's just a PR expulsion to some people that they've quit sharing or shut down. Maybe they'll keep using it. So again, if you have more information, reach out to me. Reach out to Aaron. Go anonymously to one of the the New York Times. You could go to Radar Online. You could go to the Daily Mail. There's a lot of places you can go to with your information. So this continues to be an interesting story. Thank you for listening. We're at a half hour, and let me go see through the comments. Yeah, compartmentalization, slow-mo moon buggy. This is definitely an example of compartmentalization where nobody's going to be absolutely sure what's going on, except, of course, Captain David Miscavige. And I want to go back to that slide. And this is, here, I want to put this up. I'd like to get, reach out to Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis. If they have any comments, they can certainly reach out to me. Ashton, Mila, you can certainly contact me and talk about what you think. Do you think Danny Masterson was declared an SP? It wouldn't affect you because you're a Scientologist, so you could go still visit him. And they look at the image. I think that's where they stole the imagery from. They wanted to be like American Gothic. Just mom, pa, kettle. Where's shucks people? They have so frigging much money. Good for them. And then that's another slide where we go off to. That was a different program. I don't know if I presented this yet. There's a shot back in the good old days with Mila, Vilmer, Ashton, Laura, and Danny at the Scientology Celebrity Center. Well, one thing I can tell you this Christmas, Danny Masterson will not be making an appearance at the Scientology Celebrity Center for their annual Christmas gala because he's a resident of the state of California for at least 20 years. So he has had to make other arrangements. So no, Danny Masterson will not be missed at Scientology Celebrity Center's Christmas Gala. In fact, I bet you can't even speak the name of Danny Masterson. It is the name that must not be spoken on the pain of death within Scientology. So for the Scientology Money Project, Jeffrey Augustine, wishing you have a great rest of your day. Thank you for listening, and we'll be in good touch with some other stuff. We'll get the straight dope on this matter. Talk to you.